becomes double every 18 months.
Number of
Okay.
transistors doubles in every 2 months and area reduces by half.
So I think it's 2 years and not 2 months.
Number of
So I think it's
transistors
18 months.
gets doubled in 18
I
months.
think it's 18 months.
Yeah. So who was Gordon Moore? Do you know that? Who was Gordon Moore? Who gave this
Co-founder
Moore's
of
law?
Intel founder.
I think the founder of Intel. Yeah, Intel founder.
Okay. So Moore observed that the way VLSI technology was progressing in those days, he saw that every 2 years the density or the number of transistors that you can pack on a particular chip kind of doubles. Okay. So if this slide is about why is VLSI design hot in the first place. So people usually talk about Moore's law. Okay, and the Moore's law says that you are able to integrate more number of transistors on a die, and therefore the price reduces. But there is another set of laws which are very, very important and which ensure that VLSI continues to remain hot. They are, for example, Pollak's law, which says that as you integrate more stuff onto one chip, as you do more of this integration, the overall performance of your system improves. Okay, and then also Dennard scaling, which said that while you shrink the device, while you add more, increase the density of devices on a given area, you also improve the performance of the device. So in combination of all these three things, this is a virtuous loop that got formed, that you are reducing the price, you are improving the performance, and you're making the overall system lighter also, so more convenient to use. So are you able to understand all the three axes? How do you think integration improves performance?
Sir, can you once again tell about Dennard scaling?
Yeah, so I will tell about Dennard scaling, but how do you think the Pollak's law function? How
Sir,
does
if like-
integration lead to improved performance?
Like, sir, if two processor, like if inside a chip, if there are multiple processors and they are like efficiently placed so that they are working in coherence with each other. So in that case, the delay and all the like latency will be reduced. So in terms of performance, it will be increased.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
So
like
consider it
we have
as-
properly integrated the system on the chip.
Yes, Prayas. Thank you. So let us consider it like this. Suppose you are in an old technology. What happens? You can put, one processor on a chip, and the memory, memory also you can just put about 1 megabit memory on the chip. The remaining memory is outside the chip. So when you need to access more than 1 megabit, you have to go off the chip, you have to go to the IO, you have to get outside the chip, you have to then be routed along the PCB, then you will enter another chip. So there are lots of physical delays that come into picture. I'm just giving an example. Whereas when technology scaled, you could now integrate 2 megabit of memory on the same die. So now up till 2 megabit, you do not need to even go off chip. Everything is available on chip. Since everything is available on chip, the additional delays that come because of IOs, because of transmission lines on the PCB, etc., they are avoided. And therefore your performance improves. Are you able to see this? This is just one example. You can do this at multiple levels. One Prayas also shared. So you can do this at multiple levels, and you will see that when you bring things closer and when you integrate them together, the delays that happen due to communication between the two components, at least they reduce, if nothing else. Is this thing clear? Are you able to see this?
Sir, so by this chart, so we can it means that integration means packing more number of transistors in a given area, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just...
Yeah. Integration means packing more devices onto the same area. Okay. So now we come to the Dennard scaling. What do you understand by scaling? The Dennard scaling over there. You must have heard about scaling earlier. So what do you understand by that?
So scaling in literal sense would be to reduce the technology nanometer size. So basically, if you have a 19 nanometer technology coming down to 65, then coming down to 5, 3, that would be scaling of the transistor.
Yeah.
So isn't
So
that an integration
what happens
part
when you scale
if
them?
we reduce the nanometer?
So that is technology scaling. That is, so that is where this is a loop. ये तीनों चीजें इतनी closely connected हैं कि scaling के साथ आप, you know that when you scale, you improve the performance also. You improve the performance because your channel length reduces. So the distance that the electron has to, or the holes have to travel from source to the drain, that distance reduces. Hole or electron velocity remains same. So since that remains same, you say that, okay, since the hole or electron velocity remains same, you realize that the device would now operate faster. Okay, so these are all so closely linked that as you scale, you also integrate more, and as you scale, you also have a better performance. So that is where it is a virtuous loop. Okay, and Dennard scaling essentially means that every 2 years, or now even earlier than that, 18 months, you would be able to actually do something to the devices, scale them so that the performance improves. Okay, and the combination of these three, the combination of Moore's law, Pollak's law, and Dennard scaling together ensure that the cell phone that you're holding in your hand gets cheaper for the same performance every year. Is it not? I'd say, you are getting a 8 GB RAM in your application processor today at the same price at which you used to get, say, a 2 GB RAM a few years back. Is it not? Today, you have a octa-core processor at the same price at which you would get possibly a dual-core processor 8 years, 9 years back. So, so you're getting at the same price, you're getting much more value out of your wafer, of your design, and that is where, when you add more value, consumers like it, and technology becomes pervasive. So this is essentially what was Moore's first thought. That okay, if I look at the relative number of transistors per IC, he said that, okay, see, they are increasing. They are increasing, and every 2 years you see them doubling on a chip. Okay, and the consequence has been that where in 1950s, when the first transistors were formed or something like that, to today, you have billions of transistors on one chip. You are able to do billions of calculations on every die, and per second. Basically, we touched the mouse brain long back, and we will end up touching a human brain pretty soon. The number of calculations per second. I'm not yet talking about power efficiency or energy efficiency in that. Just the sheer number of calculations that a human brain does in every second, that can happen on a die, on a chip, sometime soon. So someone had a question? Rohit, you had a question?
No, sir. It switched on by accident.
Okay.
So
Yes, Swapnil?
So when we're talking about Dennard scaling, like this would have been like the case, like this circular diagram would have been valid like around 15-20 years ago, right? Because like
Yeah.
people now say that, like what I have read earlier also, people now say that Dana scaling has actually failed and now it's no longer valid, because as and when you go down and increase the shorten the transistor length, the power density actually does not remain constant. So,
Yeah, power density doesn't remain constant. Performance still improves.
So, but the Dennard scaling in literal terms was that it says that the power remains constant, right?
Dennard scaling was that, no, it was not just about power remains constant. It was about as you scale and you scale the voltage along with the physical dimensions, your chip will be faster and it will have the same power envelope or a smaller power envelope. So today we are scaling, we are improving the performance, but the power part is failing. Yes.
Yeah.
The power part is failing. Okay. So, in fact, Swapnil, thank you for pointing us here. This is what is happening. This is cost per million gates on the y-axis. And you see that from 90 nanometers till 28 nanometers, the cost per million gate in terms of dollars was reducing. But from 28 nanometers, the cost is no longer reducing. So हमने अभी एक वो देखा ना, हमने देखा कि as I integrate more, as I scale, the price reduces, but that is no longer happening. So what do we do now? In 14 nanometer and in 20 nanometer, this is no longer happening. And this is just the change in the way scaling was expected to happen in 2013. That is this blue curve. In 2013, it was said that we would go to say 5 nanometer gate length in 2028. Okay, this is physical gate lengths. And in 2015, just 2 years later, they said no, physical gate lengths will probably never go below 10 nanometers. So now you will ask me, sir, we already hear about 7 nanometer FinFET. What is that? So 7 nanometer FinFET, as I already mentioned in the last class, may not have any physical dimension at 7 nanometers. So 7 nanometers, as I already said, that it may have no physical dimension at 7 nanometers. So this is how the ITRS changed its roadmap. So what do we do then? In addition to this, okay, so one thing was that the roadmap says that this is no longer going to help. We also noticed that due to scaling or due to the change in the requirements from the masks, the cost of mask set per run has skyrocketed in the recent few technologies. So there was a question.
Yes, sir. Like in the previous slide, sir, you said that we are not now literally reducing the channel length. So we are not scaling the device. So, sir, how Moore's law is valid now? Because how the transistor density is getting doubled now if we are not scaling the device.
So who says transistor density is getting doubled now?
So right now, Moore's law doesn't hold valid.
No, that is what I'm arriving at. So VLSI has always been hot because Moore's law worked. Now we will see why other reasons are still continuing to ensure that Moore's law or VLSI remains hot. But now VLSI is not hot simply because scaling would give you that performance gain, that price advantage. That is what I'm telling now. Okay. And earlier that virtuous loop existed. Today that virtual loop has actually broken. The mask costs have increased. The cost of 1 million transistors on a die has started to stagnate or increase a little with every new technology node. Okay. So something needs to be done. Something needs to go there. And what actually helps us to again lower the cost is the fact that we are going to extreme ultraviolet light-based machines. So one of the very big reasons why the mask cost was increasing uh, every uh, every technology was that the first thing was that the during manufacturing or for every layer.
You were not audible back if you were saying something.
Am I audible now?
Yes, and now you are.
Okay. So till what point were you able to capture what I had said?
So just the
So you were
starting of
drawing some
EUV.
diagram or something. Before that only we were able to.
Okay, so you saw that this slide transition I did, and then you could not hear what I was saying with the slide. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I was delving upon why has the cost, why did the cost of the mask set or the cost of the transistor stop to scale as we started to come to very fine geometries? So the fact is that we use a light of 193 nanometers wavelength in technologies since I would say 180 nanometer.
Sir, again you are not audible.
Nanometers.
So you're not audible.
But
Sir, you were again not audible.
okay, so what part did you listen?
Till like
Or you talk
193.
till 193 nanometer.
So
Then your voice and
You're not audible, sir.
so is the voice clear now?
No, sir.
no, sir.
No,
The
sir,
voice
not
is still
audible.
not clear?
I think sir now it's clear.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, sir, you are audible now.
Am I audible now? Like I was not speaking something in the meanwhile, but now that I am speaking, am I audible now? Is the voice clear now?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was saying that we used to use a light of 193 nanometer wavelength from 180 nanometer technology onwards. And to be able to draw 65 nanometer features with a 193 nanometer wavelength, what we did was we started to go to immersion lithography. But at 28 nanometers or beyond 28 nanometers, even immersion lithography started to fail. So what we needed to do then was we needed to say that in 20 nanometers, for example, even if you have to make two polylines, you would make them on two separate masks. So if you have to make two polylines at the closest pitch, this would be mask A and this polyline would be visible on mask B. So for every design step, you need for such fine geometry design steps, you needed two masks. Two masks also meant that you would need two exposures during the manufacturing process. We will come to mask and exposures pretty soon. So if you are not getting what mask and exposure is, we will come to that pretty soon. But just keep it with you that the lithography became much more complex as you go to finer geometries because the wavelength of light that we were using was very large. However, in the recent times, extreme ultraviolet light-based machines have also been industrialized, and therefore the cost of manufacturing has started to come down again. Okay. Additionally, what has been done is we have also gone into this other axis of what we call as more than more. Okay, so till about 10-15 years back, the only thing that people talked about was more, and more. That is, scale down from 130 nanometer to 90 and so on, and that was largely it. But in the past 15 years, we've started to integrate RF devices. We've started to integrate passives like resistors and capacitors onto the device. We've started to design high voltage power devices. We have sensors and MEMS which are no longer CMOS kind of a technology. We have RFIDs and NFC kind of devices. So these things, in addition to that, we've always had non-volatile memories. So in addition to these, they've always had those things, which are attached, which are connected to the device, and are integrated on the same die, and therefore bring much more value for the same die, for the same chip. And as we just said, we are that virtuous loop that we talked about was actually continuously adding more value. It was reinforcing more value into the system. Now that more value is coming from more integration. Okay, not exactly just by scaling, but more integration. And also the fact that we are possibly able to, while we are not able to scale just the digital technology part of it, we are able to scale the other value add technology part of it. Okay, we are also going to 3D integrations. We're talking about systems in a package. So even if I have to go for multiple dies, I would simply stack them one over another in the same package, so that I don't need to go onto the PCB at all. Okay, so that I would at least reduce the delays that otherwise would be taken up in terms of going into the PCB and transferring information from the PCB. So innovations have come in at multiple levels to ensure that VLSI continues to remain hot. And you will see there are so many more kind of innovations lined up in the technology and design domain that we see that VLSI will continue to remain hot for all times to come. Any questions still here? Any questions still here?
So, hello.
Yes.
So when we were talking about like the value is now increasing not just because of the scaling, but by technology integration, more by technology integration. So by integration, so what exactly? I missed that part. So by integration, we exactly meant that the technological advancement which.
I'm sorry, Swapnil, I did not get your question properly. You're getting on mute again and again.
So am I audible?
Were others able to hear the question properly?
No, sir, there was some lag from my end also.
Hello, sir, can you hear me now?
Yes,
sir,
now you are audible.
Sir, I guess there is some problem at your end, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, Swapnil.
So basically, I was saying that when we talk about that more value is coming from more technology integration, not by just scaling of the MOSFET or the transistor, by technology integration that like the technological advancements which were happening day by day, and like the manufacturing process and the fabrication process got improved. That is what we meant, right? So I just missed that part exactly. So that's what I was confirming.
Okay. So what I was saying was, am I audible now? Is
yes,
my voice clear?
Yes, you are now.
So you can type in the chat window if my voice is clear or not. Am I audible to all of you now? Is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I was saying was that while the physical scaling may have stopped, and while we may see that there are challenges to ensure a continuity in the physical scaling, the more than more paradigm where we integrate or where we bring in innovation from other axes, where we integrate other kinds of devices onto the same die, has ensured that we continue to add more value to our dies, to our chips, to our system on chips, so that customer is still ready to upgrade to the new chip, to the new version of the device. And that is where VLSI continues to augment life in meaningful ways. Okay, so today you will notice that there are processors which integrate RF devices on the die. There are devices which integrate MEMS on the same die, image sensors on the same die as digital logic. In addition to that, we also have technologies which enable two different kinds of dies, analog die, imaging sensor, to be coupled along with the digital logic die in the same package, so that you do not spend time and energy in transferring information from one die to another. Earlier, you would have to go to the PCB, you will have to transmit something on a line on the PCB and so on, so that would consume power and time. Now that is that is doable within the same package, so you save a lot of cost because of that also. So multiple different technologies and innovations have ensured that VLSI continues to remain hot. Is that clearer now? Hello? Okay. So that is more about, that was again a very top level picture of it. Now we go into how are chips fabricated. So I remember there was this question about why do we not make square wafers and why do we make circular wafers. So all those questions will be answered in this section. Any questions still here? Again, before we move into the fabrication part, if you have any questions till what we have just covered, please feel free to ask.
One small doubt, it's like fabrication companies, like you were saying that we from previous years we were trying to minimize the technological size or the channel size. In order to do that, like if we were going from 19 nanometer to 65 nanometer, we were getting the performance rise. But as like in today, like in recent years, if you transfer that logic from, like if you go to 10 nanometer to 5 nanometer, we are not getting the performance improvement. Sir, why is it like that? Like I'm not getting the basic significance. If अगर हम कोई चीज को कोई चैनल लेंथ को छोटा करेंगे तो इलेक्ट्रॉन जल्दी फास्ट मूव करेगा, तो हमें परफॉर्मेंस इंक्रीज होनी चाहिए ना सर. ऐसा क्या हो रहा है कि मतलब साइज छोटा कर रहे हैं तो
Priyas, I'm not able to hear you clearly. I think there could be an error at or a network issue at my end. I will disconnect and just reconnect. Okay, give me 1 second. I will just disconnect and reconnect.
Okay.
So is my voice clearer now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Priyas, you were saying something. Please, you will have to repeat. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No problem, sir. So I was like asking, in the previous era, we were thinking that from scaling down our chip size from like technological size from suppose 130 nanometer to 65 nanometer, we were getting a performance boost. But in recent years, like you're saying that if we are moving from 10 nanometer to 5 nanometer, we are not getting the performance rise. I'm not able to understand.
No. I did not say anything about the performance. I simply said something about the cost.
So, no, but the thing is, you're saying that like in today's scenario, there's nothing called as the chips makers are making 5 nanometer, but it's not effectively there are no certain dimensions regarding to that 5 nanometer, you're saying, right?
Yeah, I said there is no physical dimension that would match or that would measure 5 nanometers.
So
but
if you
that
say,
did not mean that there is no gain in performance.
So is it like the current fabrication companies are not able to fabricate that, and they are replicating the same scenario which you will get with the 5 nanometer technology. Like अगर सर मैं ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि अगर वो 5 नैनोमीटर पे नहीं कर पा रहे हैं तो वो सेम परफॉर्मेंस जो 5 नैनोमीटर की आनी चाहिए थी वो इंटीग्रेशन के द्वारा करना चाह रहे हैं, ऐसा कुछ है क्या सर?
नहीं. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to play other tricks. They are trying to play tricks with materials. Okay, they are, so I'm not sure if any one of you has done or are doing a course or like solid state devices or physics of semiconductor devices, but see, silicon has a band gap of 1.12 electron volts, and there is a certain mobility for electrons and holes in silicon. Germanium has a larger band gap, but the mobility of electrons and holes is very different. So what people are doing is they are putting stressors, they are putting silicon germanium mix materials. So someone was asking a few days back कि sir silicon पे ये सब क्यों अटके पड़े हैं? So actually में आज कोई silicon पे अटका नहीं पड़ा है. People are using different kinds of schemes, different kinds of techniques to improve performance, even when physically you cannot go to that kind of a gate length. Even though you're not able to gain on density, people are playing tricks, or innovating to get the same performance as you would have got when you had scaled. So even if you're not able to get the price advantage due to higher density, at least they are keeping the other laws, that okay, I will at least improve the performance. I will make slightly larger chips, I will improve the performance, I will do something with integration. So they are ensuring that more and more value is getting added on every chip that is sold to a customer through various means. But physically, you will not see any device which has a length of 7 nanometer on the 7 nanometer technology. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, Anuj?
Sir, you just now mentioned that analog dies and digital dies are being coupled in a single package. So here, when I talk about analog die, so I will make an analog die in a separate wafer, and similarly, a digital die will be made on a separate wafer, and then those two will be coupled in a single package just to improve the performance, like delays and all that. Means
Yes.
here there is no reduction in cost. Sir, is this understanding correct?
No. There is a very significant reduction in cost also.
So, but we are manufacturing two different dies and repeating
So
the same.
the cost of the die did not reduce. Okay, I understand that, but the cost of package was done away with. Now you need only one package. Now you need a much smaller PCB, a simpler PCB. So that cost has also reduced.
Okay, sir. Got your point.
See, again, while I will continue to harp that area is gold, and in today's first example also, you saw that just 10% reduction in area led to a 90% boost in profitability of the die. So, itna farak padta hai, it really makes that big a difference, that your profitability increases significantly when you reduce the area. But if you're not able to reduce the area because the scaling has, for example, frozen or something like that, there are so many other places that the cost goes, and you can reduce those. Today, people are talking about reducing test costs by integrating more and more automated testing onto your dies, so that test cost reduce करके वो customer को जो value दे रहे हैं उसको बढ़ा सकें, and so on. So customer still sees reduced cost, and all this is a part of VLSI design process. In the first lecture itself, we saw that foundry costs and testing cost and packaging is all a part of VLSI design flow, is it not?
Yes, sir.
So you reduce cost in any axis in any of these dimensions, and the customer will see increase in value. Okay?
Okay, sir. Got your point. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now we look at fabrication. Okay. So before we... Yes.
Sir, can we say that Moore's law can be solved by integrating analog and digital circuits on a single chip, sir?
So, Guruvi, Moore's law simply said that you will be able to integrate double the number of devices on the same area every 18 months. That is no longer happening. Okay. But the VLSI design industry, VLSI industry has realized that there is a virtuous loop, that when you continue to add value to the customers, you continue to grow. Okay. And that is where the industry is, instead of stagnating, is innovating in multiple different dimensions so that customers stand to see an increase in value with every technology, with every new generation of products. But the Moore's law has actually broken down.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So the Moore's law has actually broken down. If you remember, I'm not sure if you track news in the VLSI circles. Intel recently said that it will start to use other fabs for advanced process technologies and will no longer fabricate in-house. This was one of the biggest validation of this idea that the Moore's law is no longer valid, because Intel had been very aggressively targeting reducing the physical dimension of the devices. They missed the window of innovating in other dimensions to improve device performance, and that is why they ended up struggling. TSMC on the other side agreed that no, Moore's was just an observation. He made an observation and you decided to call it a law. That is your foolishness. That observation is no longer valid. So that's fine. We have to still add value to the customer. And they added value through other means. As I mentioned, silicon germanium and many other stressors they put today. So, that kind of thing happens. And the Moore's law in terms of that observation that your device density would increase every 18 months, that is no longer valid. But we are still continuing to add value to our dies, to our chips, through other means. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So now when we enter into the fabrication, the first and the foremost thing that we need to refresh within ourselves, that we've all studied about these, crystalline structures, crystalline materials, the cubic structure and face-centered cubic structure, the body-centered cubic structure. Do you remember them? At least now that you see the slide, are you able to refresh that you've done all this stuff sometime in your physics classes earlier?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the entire, device physics, or the entire VLSI industry, the operation of devices and functionality is based on this knowledge that was given to you way back in your school years. Okay. And how, we will just see. What is important to realize is that, in these crystalline structures, multiple crystalline structures, each of these structures have a different density of atoms, and therefore different physical properties, different chemical properties, and also different electrical properties. Okay. And that is what is utilized in the VLSI industry to ensure that we get the behavior of our devices the way we want it. So are you able to see this face-centered cubic structure? So a simple cubic structure would not have had these transistors, these atoms. When you add these 6 atoms into your crystal lattice, you call it as a face-centered cubic structure. Do you remember this? Because on each face, there is this one additional atom there.
Yes, sir.
Now, in this face-centered cubic structure, when you add, so वापस जाते हैं एक बार. So what you say is that, okay, I can break this cube into 16 smaller cubes. So there is a face पे कुछ है. So you say, okay, I will break this cube. So I will break this, every face I will go and I will break this. And in fact, then there are 16 smaller cubes in this die, in this lattice. Are you able to see those 16 cubes? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, friends, I need your response. Otherwise, I have to switch to the chat window to see आप में से किसी ने yes तो नहीं लिख दिया, and I do not know. So please unmute yourself. When I ask you a question, please unmute yourself and say yes. Okay, if you're with me. So what happens is that in diamond cubic structure, in 4 of those 16 cubes, 16 nahi, 8 cubes hote hain actually. In 4 of those 8 cubes, there is an additional atom there. What this does is this gives the material a different kind of hardness. In fact, that is why diamonds are the hardest materials. Okay. And why are we talking about diamond cubic? Because silicon that we use in our technology also has the diamond cubic lattice. Okay. So let us look at this diamond cubic structure in a slightly different way. So this is the animation of a diamond cubic structure, and you see that as this lattice is rotating, you know, at different times you're able to see different kind of space through the lattice. At times you're able to see across the lattice very clearly because there are hexagonal cubes there, hexagonal structures there. At other times you see only squares, and at other times you don't see anything because you only see atoms. Are you with me? Do you realize that this diamond lattice, when it rotates or when it is in a motion, and you approach this diamond lattice through different directions, that is, you will experience different kind of behaviors. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what
Yes.
this essentially means is that if now this is diamond cubic structure, so silicon is also this. So what this essentially means is that if in this cube, which I call as a crystal, a cubic lattice, whatever, if I move something in one direction, I will experience one kind of resistance or one kind of conductance. If I move charge in a different direction, the charge would experience a different kind of resistance or conductance. Am I right? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If I move, so this is an anisometric structure. Any crystal is anisotropic, that it would have different properties along different directions. So when you manufacture your devices on silicon, would it be acceptable that आपके कुछ devices, कुछ dies पे conductivity कुछ और है, किसी और device पे conductivity कुछ और है? Would you accept that kind of a technology?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So do you realize that at the very base level, it is so important to identify the right crystal orientation so that your wafers are all designed in a particular way so that your devices behave as you wanted them to behave. So we've already covered this part. What we were just discussing is that the plane of a wafer along which you want current flow will define whether what kind of electrical and physical characteristics will be exhibited by that material. And therefore, when we make a wafer, we have to very, very carefully choose the crystal orientation through which we bring about crystallization. So silicon wafers are made by what is known as, so how many of you can pronounce this term?
Zoralsky technique.
Yeah, Zoralsky technique. So is in this technique, what is done is you have a cauldron of molten silicon, and in that molten silicon you put a crystal seed. And this crystal seed has to be put in the right orientation, and then you gradually pull this seed out. Okay, क्योंकि आपने एक क्रिस्टल को यहाँ डाला था एंड आप बहुत धीरे धीरे उस क्रिस्टल को बाहर निकाल रहे थे, ये क्रिस्टल बाकी आसपास के सिलिकॉन के साथ बॉन्ड होके धीरे धीरे करके, सो यहाँ पे आप अगर इफ यू लुक एट इट इन द बिगनिंग, दिस टिप इज very, very small, you know, and then when you start to pull it out, it gradually grows and as it grows, the speed at which you start to pull this thing out will decide the circumference of this ingot. Okay. As was already mentioned in the slide, wafers of 6 inches, 8 inches, and now 12 inches are used. So very long back, even 3 inches wafer were designed because the technology was not that advanced. But today you have almost everywhere we use only 12 inches wafers, except in except where we want to design, for example, MEMS or some other technology. For digital logic, everywhere you will see that 12-inch wafers are used. For more than more technologies, you are still using these wafers. But for all digital technologies, you're using 12-inch wafers. So this diameter is actually more than 300 millimeters. Okay. So once you get this wafer out, once you get this ingot out, you need to do some stuff on it to convert it into a wafer. Okay. You slice that ingot into smaller, thin wafers. You grind them so that each wafer is now circular in shape. You lap them so that the thickness of each wafer is exactly the same. We will see, just park this question. It is important that the thickness of the wafer is within a range. Too much, much thicker or much thinner would lead to issues. Okay. We polish the surface of the wafer so that the surface is spick and span, and whatever you want to do on it, you do it. Then you dope it. The wafers come pre-doped, and a P-type substrate is typically used. And if an N-type substrate is to be used, you also, what is done is, आपका circular wafer था, you give a flat. You give it a flat. Okay, flat means उसको कहीं से side से ऐसे काट देना. When you give it a flat, you are essentially telling the next, it's like a relay race. एक workshop में ये काम हुआ, next workshop में जब जाएगा तो हमें पता है that this is 111 direction. Now this wafer has to be kept like this in your different processes so that आपके जो transistors बने वो 110 direction में, for example, current को transfer करें. Okay, because आपने जितनी भी केयर के साथ अपना वेफर पहला बनाया, अगर आप उस इंफॉर्मेशन को आगे नहीं भेजोगे तो कोई फायदा नहीं होगा. So this primary flat is made, and for an N-type wafer, we also have a much smaller secondary flat on the side. Okay. Typically, P-type substrate is used. So in most of the wafers that you will ever come across, you will see that there is only one flat. Okay.
So
yes.
So I have a doubt that we in the process of getting a wafer cell, like we put in a seed, and in the process of pulling out, we get a wafer. Is this correct?
No, in the process of pulling out, we get an ingot. Then that huge crystal of an ingot is sliced, and you get a wafer. Then you work on that wafer, you lap it up, you polish it, you do stuff on it, you dope it, and then you make a flat, and then you say, okay, this is ready to go. That is what is finally called a wafer.
Okay, and sir, while pulling out, just as you talked about the correct orientation, so this is because of the correct orientation that it forms a bond with molten silicon anode.
Yes, you may say that. It will anyway form a bond, but for the wafer, you want it to be in exactly the same orientation so that when you say something is a primary flat or a secondary flat, that information holds true.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
yes.
So don't you do an etching process in between all those things? Like you need to etch out the wafer also, right?
Etch out the wafer. So that is what we're calling polishing as of now.
Okay. And so
What do you mean?
So no, etching basically means, okay, polishing in one way. Okay. So I call it etching. So
no,
and
etching is a completely different term. We will talk about this in the next few slides. But wafers, for etching, you need to have some mask somewhere. अभी तो हम wafer बना ही रहे हैं. पहला wafer बन रहा है. अभी तो उसके अंदर mask की बात ही नहीं आई.
Okay. And sir, एक बार अगर मैं flat को ठीक से समझाऊं तो it was basically to give it the correct orientation, right? That is what flat was.
No, it is just a means to communicate. It is just a means to communicate to the next person, to the fab where this wafer will be worked upon, that this is the direction 111.
Okay.
This is just to do that. Okay.
Sir.
Yes, Anuj.
Sir, if I say this circular shape of wafer is because it is process dependent, because we do not have any other process like CZ process. We do not have any other process to make the wafer, so that is why the circular shape of wafer exists.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Sir, why are we using a molten silicon over here?
So have you done some crystallization experiments in your school?
Yes, sir. With the
so you needed a liquid, na? You needed a liquid.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that liquid would slowly solidify.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that is when crystals will be formed, na?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, Priya.
ये जो प्रोसेस थी इसमें एक सिलेंडर इनगॉट जो होगा बेसिकली वो एक 3D स्पेस में सिलेंडर टाइप होगा, फिर उसको हम काट मतलब स्लाइस करेंगे, राइट, टू गेट द वेफर. अगर सर वो जो प्रोसेस में अगर हम एक मतलब जो हमारे पास जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट है वो सर एक स्क्वायर शेप का होता और हम फिर उसमें से धीरे धीरे निकालते वो पुल आउट करते, तो सर फिर वो एक हमें स्क्वायर टाइप का 3D स्ट्रक्चर मिलता, तो उसमें फिर हमें स्क्वायर वो मिल जाती. मतलब स्क्वायर टाइप का 3D इनगॉट मिल जाता.
So actually what you do is you also rotate. So you आप अपना एक डाई डालते हो and उसको rotate करते जाते हो. So you will actually get only a circular one.
Okay, sir. Then I got it.
Okay.
Hello.
Sir.
Yes, Anamika.
Sir, after getting this ingot, still we can convert it to that square wafer, but since the cost will unnecessarily reduce, therefore we are not doing it. I'm asking.
There is one more reason. Let us say this was your wafer, okay, and your die was only this big, okay. So what you do, you make these dies all over the place, है ना? So you will have these dies coming all over the place. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you said that I would use a square wafer, so what would you have done? You would have made a square like this. Am I right? This bold red now, that would have been your wafer.
Yeah, so that area would be wasted.
So all this silicon would have been wasted, and all those extra dyes that you could have got in the same exposure, in the same flow, you're now losing out on.
Okay, sir, got it. And sir, what you were saying that this is 111 direction and it will decide that current flows in 110 direction, something like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
What is this 111 and 110? How we decide?
So this is about the crystal lattice. So you will have to go back to your device or crystal classes to get that. You don't need to understand that, but if you are interested, you will have to go to that place to understand that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, how these directions are named, you will get that there. Okay.
Excuse me, sir, I had one question. So I just said that you put a flat to just indicate that, okay, this is the direction in which the current will flow. Why am I wasting such precious area to, I'm just cutting it off? Why not I just make a marking or something on the package itself? I mean, I would be sending it using some cardboard box or something. So why not I mark it on that? Why am I wasting my silicon?
Yeah. So देखो अभी Setu, for the first step, the person who opened the carton, he would know, okay, यहाँ पे ये marking करा हुआ है. But then in the next step, you would have deposited silicon dioxide over it. Whatever you had etched or whatever you had marked on that wafer would be covered by silicon dioxide. Now you want to take this wafer into a different machine where this needs to be etched. Now you have no
Right.
marking left.
So like, can we just, so suppose as you said, like once I have, doped it with the oxide, can I just do some testing on it to see in which direction the current is supposed to flow? Or is it very difficult to do? I'm assuming that it is, because otherwise I would need a physical marking. Am I correct?
Yes, there is no device yet.
Okay.
Setu, there is no device yet. अभी तो आपका बस वेफर है जिसके ऊपर आपने ऑक्सीडेशन करा है.
हाँ.
अब कोई डिवाइस तो बना नहीं है अभी.
Yeah.
कैसे पता लगाओगे?
This is like basically what I wanted to ask is, as you said, like so again, one of the things that I'm assuming is that that device will behave differently if current is passed along different directions, right?
Okay, so what I can do is I can say that, okay, I put 2 electrodes on the wafer and see what kind of current is flowing and find the resistivity.
Exactly.
After every machine, it means when I put a wafer into every machine, I will spend some time to ensure that the direction is same. Now, do you realize that and if there is this, if I have rotated my wafer by just 2 degrees, I will still get approximately the same current, possibly in the same error margin of whatever equipment you are using to measure it.
Yes.
So आप फर्स्ट मशीन से दूसरी मशीन में गए, आपने 2 डिग्री वेफर रोटेट कर दिया, दूसरी मशीन से तीसरे में गए 2 डिग्री और रोटेट कर दिया. फाइनली एट द एंड ऑफ योर 20th मशीन आपका जो डिवाइस है उसका एक्टिव ऐसा है एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे, और पॉली ऐसा है.
Okay.
Would it work for you?
No, it would not.
So it is better. So even if you want to do that testing and waste time after every machine and everything, it is better to leave this notch.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we will stop here. We will continue in the next class. We will talk about rotated substrates in the next class. It's already time now. Okay. So thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. I'm stopping the recording now.